Well, Kentucky fans are getting it hot on Calipari right now. Let's get into talking about what's happening with them.
Walker 3 on the way. Oh!
Hello, guys, and thank you so much for joining me once again on Indiana Sports Connection. I am your residential anchor, Aaron. Thank you so much for joining me and being part of this Hoosiers community and Colts community on here. We have a lot to talk about today on the show. We have some clips lined up. We're going to hear from John Calipari, what he said after the game. We're going to hear from Charles Barkley. Charles, something he said about Yale going into this game, I thought pretty hilarious. And then what happened afterwards, Calipari's comments, and then also what Dan Patrick had to say about his coaching style. We'll talk about all that and more on this episode of Indiana Sports Connection. But if this is your first time here, hit that subscribe button down below, hit that bell notification, and hit that thumbs up button. We will get this video out to more Hoosier fans across the nation, across the globe. We have people watching this everywhere, and I have a giveaway. We are rolling right up to 1,000 subscribers soon. So subscribe to the channel. I have a giveaway, home field apparel. You will be entered to win if you just subscribe and leave a comment on the video that hits 750. I will do a giveaway and give away home field apparel. These shirts have the softest material of any shirts I've ever had, and you will get your pick of teams. Check out their website. They have tons of different teams they're always adding. So if you like St. Peter's, get a St. Peter's shirt. Be my guest. But thank you so much for being here. Thank you so much for being part of this community. And we're going to talk about today, March Madness. All right, so I got some clips lined up here. Let's get right into the episode. So John Calipari, he said some very interesting things after the game. Let's just go ahead and roll that clip, and then we'll talk about what he said in a couple of these clips. Let's roll that.
It's a good question. Like, I've done this with young teams my whole career. And it's going to be hard for me to change that because we've helped so many young people and their families that I don't see myself just saying, okay, we're not going to recruit freshmen. And I mean, the thing that we've been blessed with is families bring their sons to us, and we do what we're supposed to do to help them prepare for the rest of their lives. But I've taken some older guys, and we've done it. So,
yeah, he is going on and on about we have a young team and we have all of this stuff. I mean, Calipari, he is really like a snake oil salesman, isn't he? I mean, this guy, he could sell a ketchup popsicle to a woman in white gloves.
Ketchup popsicle? Yeah.
His philosophy, what we are seeing in this tournament is it takes these older players. Now, the COVID year will change that a little bit. You won't have as many of these guys being older and older and older. But how does this relate to Indiana basketball? The guys that we are getting at Indiana are practically like these has-beens or not want-tos. I really don't want to call them that because they are 4- and 5-star players. But many times the players that we're getting at Indiana are the ones that we're competing with Duke and Kansas and Kentucky for these top star players. Also, if you really start to dive into it and see how they come up with these 4- and 5-star rankings, a lot of it is done by who's recruiting them. So it doesn't really make a hill of beans of difference. As soon as a kid has Duke and say a Kansas after them, they're automatically elevated to 5-star status. That's practically how it works. I mean, nobody's going to argue with that. But do these kids that are 4 and 5 stars really know how to play basketball better than the guy from Oakland that was hitting threes? Absolutely not. All right, let's play another clip from Calipari, what he had to say, just going on a little bit more about what's going on with his team. Let's roll that clip.
We've been able to help so many kids and win so many games and Final Fours, national titles, and all this stuff, win league championships with young guys. It's changed on us. It's all of a sudden it's gotten really old. So we're playing teams that our average age is 19. Their average age is 24 and 25. So do I change because of that?
Yeah. Just so he knows, Kentucky has won national championships. You have won national championship, okay? As in singular, John. So, get that straight. Has the game changed? I mean, you've been in it for a long time and been a top tier coach. And so You didn't see some of this stuff coming. The one and done thing with him, and I think with their fan base, it just does not work. And that is the same thing we're seeing in Indiana. It does not work to get these guys that only want to get to the NBA. He can sit up there all he wants and say, our players have made billions. And that brings me to my next clip, because then Dan Patrick had this to say on his show, and he could say it a lot better than I can, but he was just talking, and he never talks about college basketball. I listen to his show nearly every day. And he had this to say to John Calipari. Let's run that clip of Dan Patrick, what he had to say about John Calipari. Here it is.
And even 2 years or 3 years, that's a big difference sometimes. You may have more talent, and as Jay Wright accurately pointed out, in 3 years from now, if I took these two teams and they played, Kentucky probably wins by 30. Well, that's not the way it works in March Madness. The transfer portal is the way you build a team. I already know what you can do instead of what I hope you can do. When I take you out of high school, I hope you can develop into what I think you're going to be. You're going to be a 5-star recruit. Well, if I take this guy and he's already got 2 years under his belt at North Carolina and he's transferring to Arizona, okay, I already know what I'm going to get. Kentucky, they play on hope that you might have that potential to be great. Well, the game has sort of passed Cal by from that standpoint. He still is a great recruiter. And if you're going to fix this, and I think he even acknowledged this, that, you know what, maybe we look at this. He should, but he's known as a great recruiter. Well, if you're getting a guy in the transfer portal, that doesn't help the reputation. Hey, I'm a great recruiter. Okay, be a great coach. And the bottom line is not, hey, these guys were here for 6 months, and look at all the money they're making in the NBA. Tell that to the Kentucky fan base today. You're paid to win there. They don't care about the draft. When those kids are gone, they're gone. New class coming in. And your job is to win. And every time Coach Cal comes on, he talks about the success of his players in the pros. Great. What was their success at Kentucky? You got one national title.
So there is one thing I disagreed with Dan Patrick, and I don't think he watches a ton of college basketball, but you can't just primarily only go to the transfer portal. I heard him saying that on a show yesterday, saying like, you just go to the transfer portal and get these guys, then you'll have guys that are experienced, you'll have guys that you know. Here is the main thing. In college, you have to have really a vision for each player, how they're going to fit into a system. Yes, can you get like one or two freshmen that come in, like how Jalen Hood-Schifino came in and really changed Indiana's team last year? Yes, you will occasionally get a guy like that will be able to. Overall, we can see what Kentucky's doing is not working. Duke dabbled a little bit into that. I think a lot of these coaches realize you have to build a team, and that takes a lot more hard work than just looking at these top tier AAU players and getting them to come to your university thinking that you're going to beat a team like Oakland. I do want to give a shout out to Brett Rump on the Sports Rush. He was talking about, because he was at, if you don't know, Oakland beat IPFW, or Purdue Fort Wayne, whatever you want to call it. They beat them up in Oakland just last week. And so I was listening to Brett Rump on the radio, and he was talking about this team. He was talking about the players, and that's just when that sparked in my brain when I was doing my picks. I made a show a couple days ago about the underdogs. So thank you so much to him, because, yeah, I put a $10 underdog bet, ended up making like 154 on that Kentucky game. And Jack Golke, this is the type of guy that Indiana needs. It's unbelievable. This guy has 1 year of eligibility. Mike Woodson should be up there talking to them, trying to get this guy on the team, because that guy was built too. I mean, he was a kind of a husky guy, could create some real space for himself out there on the floor. But going into some other things, Charles Barkley, he said this.
Get to the Sweet 16. We're going to play UConn. We're going to beat Yale. We always going to beat the smart kids. We always going to beat the smart kids.
And then here are all the nerds on the way to beating them at Auburn. Yale beats Auburn.
Gilbert, this is going to be really neat.
I sure hope so. What if it isn't, huh?
Don't be so negative. We're going to have the time of our lives.
I'm not being negative. I'm just being nervous, okay?
Well, don't be, okay? Because everything's going to be great.
Just like high school, right?
This is college. Remember, there's 6,127 students at Adams, 58% of which are girls. So that's 7,107.32 boobs.
You college guys are all alike. All you really care about is getting laid.
Yale beats Auburn. Absolutely fantastic game. I'll tell you what, the Big Ten and the SEC have not fared well. And we could see by watching the games yesterday where Wisconsin got trounced and also Nebraska got trounced. These were not great teams. And Indiana got beat by 58 total points by Nebraska in 3 games. And Nebraska gets steamrolled by Texas A&M. That should tell you something right there. Indiana, we're not even close. And here's one other thing I'm thinking when I watch Kentucky, as a 3 seed lose to Oakland. I'd much rather be in the position that Kentucky's in right now, than be where Indiana has fallen to. It's kind of sad to say, but I watched them lose that game and I think, well, at least they're there, at least they have some momentum, going into future seasons and they can make some changes, but they're looking for their coach to make some subtle changes to get away from this one and done. And they've had success with it, but they've lost in the first round. The last 4 years, they've not had much success in the tournament. What does that tell us as Hoosier fans? Stop trying to get 4- and 5-star recruits solely to come in. Talent wins in college basketball sometimes, but talent does not trump team. Team trumps talent. When you have 5 or 6 guys that go out there and play together as a team, that will trump 1 or 2 guys that can play isolation ball and just take it to certain guys. Kentucky only really had, their senior on their team, that Reeves was the only guy that really had great success in that game. He scored 30 points. But this should tell us something as Indiana Hoosier fans. What we were doing with Mbako, what we were doing with Ware, what we were doing with Renew this year, and what we were doing with these guys thinking that we're just going to bring in talent. And from Mike Woodson's last press conference, he said, the talent level's not there. Okay, the talent level was there for Indiana. The team wasn't there. You didn't build a team, and you're going to struggle until you actually go out there and build a team from the ground up with a grassroots campaign with real recruiting. This is where I disagree with Dan Patrick. You have to have your recruiting top-notch. Then you have to go out and get the transfers that fit into the system that you've built from that grassroots campaign. Then you are in business. Then you are next level in the tournament. And you know what? The thing this tournament tells us, there are no guarantees. You can run a team of good players out there and just meet a team that's just going nuts. But this tournament also tells us our style of play. If you watch all these teams that are able to win these games, they shoot 3-pointers, and you have to shoot 20 to 25 3-pointers a game at a pretty high clip. I mean, you got to be about 42% on 3-pointers and shoot about 22 a game on average, and the top teams are making 9 to 10 3-pointers a game. If you go into all the analytics on Ken Pom, and I went through all the teams where they're shooting in 3-pointers and everything like that, you have to play this way. The style of basketball that Indiana plays, shooting 2-pointers, we will get beaten by teams that make 9 and 10 3-pointers because you're behind the 8 ball by 9 or 10 points that you have to make up if they make that many more than you. That's just all there is to it. That's where the game is at today, and that's not going to change anytime soon because that's what all these kids are doing that are practicing. They're practicing shooting their 3-pointers because they love Steph Curry and they love Caitlin Clark and they love all these guys that can go out there and hit threes. These are the heroes of today, not the dunkers and not the down low players. Although you need that, like Zach Edey. But look, even Purdue shoots a lot of 3-pointers, and they have the most dominant big man in the game. And Purdue got over the hump. I fell asleep for a little bit of that game, but they came out and they really took care of Grambling State. So good for you, Purdue. You move on to the round of 32. I got you winning it all in a couple of my brackets, so don't let me down, Purdue. Thank you so much for being here on this episode of Indiana Sports Connection. We will talk more this week, and until next time, stay classy out there, Hoosier and Colts fans.
Are we gonna do what they say can't be done?
We ain't losing to them smart kids.